Guys, if your transmission on your zero turn has gotten really weak all of a sudden, I want you to check this first before ripping out that transmission. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I had a viewer asking about his hydro on his John Deere. He said it was really weak on one side. Now I don't know how weak is really weak, but I wanted to show you two things. I was trying to describe to him in the comments, but now that I got these two in here, I want to show you two things that are fairly common and people often overlook. They'll think, you know, something major is wrong with their one of the transmissions. So let me show you what I'm talking about right now. So basically he was trying to adjust the handles and he said just one side was really weak, and I said, before you do anything, come down underneath here and look at the drive belt, because two things that will happen is that the drive belt sometimes will get above that pulley. I'm sorry about the camera shaking. And it'll be between a stick or something will get in there and jump the belt. It'll be underneath the fan, but out of the groove of the pulley that's attached to the input shaft. All right, and it'll still work. It'll still, you know, everything will still be fine because the belt's still actually turning the pulley. Is just not in the groove and it doesn't have enough tension, and a lot of times it'll jump up and break the fan. So it'll still operate, it'll just... Now the other thing that can happen is that that pulley itself can start spinning on the input shaft. It'll get loose, worn out, whatever, and there's a nut on top of that fan. I think it takes a 15 millimeter on these John Deeres. And if that gets loose, or sometimes just the shaft itself, or the pulley will start spinning on the shaft. The belt and everything will look fine, but the pulley will spin on that input shaft. There is no key or anything, even though there is a little slot for a key to go in on that input shaft. It just tightens down when you tighten up the bolt that is above the fan. And that will, so the belt will be spinning the pulley faster than what it's not gripping the input shaft going down into the transmission good enough. And that's actually not very uncommon. I'll see it kind of commonly. And if you want to catch that quick, now one way to check is to loosen up this belt, and then just take your finger, or once you remove the belt from the pulley, if you can wiggle that pulley up and down, it shouldn't have any play in it. If it's got any play in it, you got a problem. And if you catch it early enough, you can just get away with replacing that pulley instead of having to replace, you know, instead of having to go into the transmission and replace that transmission input shaft. Like on this Toro, the same thing can happen on this Toro. That belt, sometimes just it takes a stick or something, that belt can get right between, jump off out of that groove and get in between the fan. Most of the times it'll just rip the fan off and you'll stop moving completely. But sometimes it does happen where it'll jump and get right between that fan, and all of a sudden you'll think that the left side's all of a sudden gotten weaker. So that's just two things you can look at that is pretty common. Now on the standers, let me show you what else can happen. It's not very common on these zero turns, because the hub that the wheel goes onto is like, well, now on the newer Z's, on the newer John Deeres, that's all a one-piece shaft, but they used to have a two-piece. Like this one, I believe, probably still has a two-piece. So this piece here was separate. It was it was pressed on to the shaft, the axle shaft coming out of this transmission. Now, like I said, it's rare on these Z900s or whatever, but I've seen it a lot on the standard commercial mowers, where the shaft will sit there and spin inside of this hub. So that's another thing you could just make sure you double check before going ripping out the transmission to rebuild it, because if that transmission gets water and trash in it, it's two different transmissions. They're sharing the same oil, they have the same reservoir tank of oil going down, but if one wears out, one can wear out and go out and the other one be fine. If it gets like metal or something damaged, one can completely blow up and the other one still be okay. So that's just a quick video I wanted to make, guys, just to show you to double check that. Because like I said, it's all it takes is just a stick or something, that tensioner sitting there going crazy as it's doing its thing, and a stick gets up in there and it'll just throw that belt real quick, and hopefully it doesn't throw it off altogether and leave you stranded. But if you notice all of a sudden your one transmission is all of a sudden really weak, check that first. Do me a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I'll have more videos like this coming soon. Thanks for watching.